Hey guys, thank you for watching. It has been a couple of weeks since we have done a video, and so I haven't forgotten about you or gotten lazy or anything like that. It's just been a couple of things that have been going on. A couple of weeks ago, I actually had a birthday, and so I turned 40, so that's kind of a big deal. And something that's kind of cool coming up in our family that we're getting excited about is Kelly is getting ready to turn 4, and she turns 4 later on this month, and she's getting ready to start pre-K, and so we're excited about that. It's kind of crazy that she's getting very big, and so there's just been a lot of different stuff going on with our family, but we're doing really well, and we hope you guys are doing well. And so for today, what I want to talk about is how people use social media in order to try to get you to believe something, and about what you can kind of do to be on the lookout for that. So how people use social media to get you to believe something, and we'll look at a little bit of what God's Word says about this. And so these are things that can be applied to regardless of whatever social media you use. So if it's YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat or whatever it is, this is something that can be applied across the board. There's a lot of people out there that are trying to use those things to get you to believe something is true, or to change the way that you view something, or to change the way that you see, or change what you see as something as right or wrong. And so when it comes to some of the things, what are some of the things that they're trying to change the way that you believe, or to convince you of something being true, or to change your thinking on things? It can be something from something small to something really, really big. And so if something really, really small and silly can be just, hey, this is an outfit that would be kind of nice to wear, to something big, to like the chaos that's going on in our world, to, viruses and statues coming down and all different kinds of crazy stuff, and everything in between. And so everything in there, the point of what they're trying to do is to convince you that something is true, or to convince you that you need to do something, or maybe to change the way that you view something is right and wrong. Now, how exactly does social media go about trying to affect the way that you think? Well, usually there's something that they do to try to get your attention. And so usually whenever you're scrolling, and you guys know this, there's things that you scroll and you see and your eye doesn't even notice it and pay attention to it, and you don't even think about it, you just kind of scroll on past it. But think of what is it that actually causes you to stop and pay attention to something. Usually it might be something to where there's a still image, or there's a person whose account you're trying to follow, and you just really want to see what's going on with them, or there's a video maybe, or something about it that it's trying to get your attention very, very quickly. And so usually those are the things that try to get you to stop and to pay attention to something, and usually they try to get some kind of reaction out of you. And so if they can get some kind of reaction out of you that either makes you really, really angry, or that makes you really, really happy, then you're liable to pay attention to what actually is going on and what message it is that they're trying to communicate you to get you to believe something. And again, it can be something they're trying to get you to believe something that's good, or they might be trying to get you to believe something that's not good, that you need to be on the lookout for. And so people trying to convince followers of Christ of something is nothing new. People have been trying to convince followers of Christ things for an awful long time. Back in the book of Galatians, in chapter 4, verses 17 and 18, there was a situation going on in this town to where people were really trying to convince Christians to change the way that they think about the gospel. And so Paul is writing to them, and he's saying, hey, be careful about this. This is what's going on. And then he says these words in chapter 4, verses 17 and 18. He says, those people, so the people that are trying to convince the believers in that town of change the way that they think about the gospel, he's saying those people are zealous to win you over, but for no good. What they want is to alienate you from us so that you may be zealous for them. It is fine to be zealous, provided the purpose is good, and to be so always and not just when I am with you. So what Paul is saying here is these people are very, very passionate and very zealous about trying to change the way that God's people see, in this particular case, how they see the gospel. And so he's saying, they may be very passionate, they may be convinced that they're right, but Paul is saying that these people are passionate, but they're wrong. And they may be convinced that they're right, but they're wrong. They are going against the truth. And so he's saying they're zealous to try to win you over to their side, but for no good. And then he's saying, hey, in verse 18, if you're zealous, that's great, provided the purpose is good. So if you're zealous for the truth, that's a good thing to be zealous for. But if you're zealous for a lie, that's something that's not good to be zealous for. So people have always tried to use different things. Now, obviously, they didn't have social media back then, so this was just one person talking to another person or people talking to people trying to convince them. But the point is, people have been trying to convince people who follow Jesus Christ forever, for 2,000 years, as far as whether or not something is true. And so just a couple of things that you can do when you're scrolling through your social media feed, again, regardless of whatever it is that you do, to kind of help you to think through, okay, what exactly am I looking at, and how can I go through and make sure I'm not being convinced that something is true when it's actually not true. And so just a couple of things to do. 3 quick things. Now, I understand you may not necessarily do this every single time, but I want to encourage you guys to do this whenever you stop. Try to practice, whenever you watch this video, whenever you get on social media immediately after this, what I want you to do is think of whatever it is that whenever you're scrolling through, what causes you to stop and pay attention to it? Well, whatever it is that causes you to stop and pay attention to it, I want you to ask yourself and consider these 3 things, just 3 quick things to help you to kind of process and to think through what they might be trying to convince you of. Number 1 is ask yourself this question: what is it that they are trying to get me to believe or to feel? What is it that they're trying to get me to believe or feel? Are they trying to get me to feel angry? Are they trying to get me to feel happy? Are they trying to get me to believe something about a certain situation if I'm watching a picture or a video or reading something there? So what is it that they're trying to get me to believe or to feel? And then number 2, how is this trying to get me to react? Is it trying to get me to think that something needs to be done about whatever it was that I just saw or read? Or is it trying to get me to react by being okay that somebody else is doing something, even if I don't necessarily do something myself? And so is it trying to do these things? And then finally, number 3, what specifically does God's Word say about this particular situation? How can God's Word be applied to this particular situation that I'm looking at here, or this message that they're trying to get me to believe? And something that's good to think through is a Bible verse when it comes to this, and it's Proverbs 19:2. Proverbs 19:2 says something that's very, very important. It says, "It is not good to have zeal without knowledge, or to be hasty and miss the way." So he's saying it's not good to be very fired up and passionate and go, go, go when the thing that you're passionate about is not based on the truth. You can be very passionate about something that's a lie. And he's saying don't be hasty, don't immediately react to something, because sometimes whenever we first react to something and we don't necessarily know what's going on, sometimes we can get fired up about something and later on realize we were mistaken and go, oops, I was wrong to react that way. And so you've done that before, I've done that before, everybody has done that before. And so what this is telling us to do is to be careful about not just necessarily reacting to something that we see right away, but stopping and thinking through what is it that they're trying to get me to believe or to feel. The second thing is, how are they trying to get me to react? And then number 3, what does God's Word specifically say about this particular thing? And so these are just a couple of things to use when you're scrolling through social media later today or after this video. Please just try this out this week. When you're scrolling through, I'm not saying you have to stop at every single thing that you look at, but whatever it is that you're scrolling through that causes you to stop and pay attention to it, consider just, what is it that I'm looking at? What is it trying to what message is it sending to me? And what does God's Word say about the message that they're sending to me? And so I think that these are some good things that'll help you to to think through when you're looking at social media, because it's important for us as followers of Christ to honor God in how we think. And one of the things that is really helpful, or one of the things that is really effective to change the way that we think, is by what we see on social media. And so we need to be careful. Sometimes we see things and we're convinced of good things. Sometimes we see things and we're convinced to believe something that's not good. And so as followers of Christ, how can we honor God and be on the lookout for what it is that we're looking at on social media? And I think that these are some things that can help us to do that. And so on behalf of Lindsay and I hope this has been helpful. On behalf of Lindsay and I, we love you guys, and we hope to see you soon. God bless.